Earlier in the week, we talked about a quarterback ranking list from the 33rd team, and we focused on the overall big picture of it, not the specific rankings. Today, we're focusing on the specific rankings of a list from the 33rd team and the specific writer, Dan Pizzuta. These are the 10
Is it
best.
the same writer?
No, different writer. This
All
is
right,
from
that
Dan
writer who made the
Pizzuta.
starting quarterback list was about as bad as it gets.
That was something class,
Yeah.
Klasa.
All right.
This is Dan Pizzuta. This is the 10 best quarterbacks set to hit free agency this offseason. And Joe Flacco, our guy, a recurring guest on UCSS, came in at number 9 on the list, behind some other guys like Tyler Huntley, Tyrod Taylor, Kirk Cousins, and Baker Mayfield, 1-2 on this list. Guys, what do you make about Joe Flacco being ranked at 9 behind some of the guys ahead of him on this particular list from the 33rd team?
I'd have him a little higher personally. But, Joe's old.
That's why he's 9th.
And
That's what it
and
comes down
ultimately, yeah, I mean, I might have him ahead of, like, Tyrod Taylor or, Ryan Tannehill's kind of old at this point, too. I don't think he's as old as
35
Flacco.
maybe? How old is Tannehill?
Yeah.
Tannehill's pretty old. Yeah, he's
I
definitely
guess
not as young as you
35.
think he
He's
is.
not
But,
Flacco.
Mike asked me about Tyler Huntley yesterday, and I said,
35.
Tyler Huntley, he's never really gotten much of a chance.
No, he hasn't.
And when he played for the Ravens, he wasn't bad.
He's got a Pro Bowl nod, which
So
we still laugh about.
there's some, at least with Tyler Huntley, there might be some unknown upside.
Yeah.
There's nothing, like with Flacco and Tannehill and Tyrod Taylor, like we know what those guys are at this point.
And look, I think if you just put the skill sets on the list and you had no names attached to them or ages,
Yeah.
Joe Flacco would be in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But when a team is getting ready to go into the free agent market to sign a contract
Right.
or a quarterback, they're looking for a fix. They're not looking for a bridge.
Right.
They want Baker Mayfield that they can sign for 4 years and know that he's still going to be 30. They want a younger quarterback that's going to get them through the next quarterback cycle, which is 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. Now Kirk Cousins is older, but he's still a
older
starter
too.
though.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
he's a starter.
And
before he got hurt last year, he was playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Agreed.
I mean, Kirk Cousins has been one of
How
the.
old is Kirk? 33?
I don't know, Mike.
Kirk Cousins is
It might even be older than that.
35 years old, same age as Tannehill.
Yeah.
But
I think
he's
that's
probably
the
got 3-4
tipping point.
good years left.
I think that's the tipping point, unless you're Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, well.
Aaron Rodgers got a multi-year
We'll
deal
see.
with
I mean,
the
Cousins
Jets.
the last few years until he got hurt has been phenomenal. In the
Yes.
regular season, at
It's
least.
been very good. And Baker's been like this. We don't know what
Yeah,
the hell we're
right.
going to get from Baker. The
Yeah.
thing with, I don't expect that he's going to, unless it's with like a Carolina who says, we've got Bryce Young. He needs more time in the oven. He needs to learn how to be a pro. Joe, come in, give us a year, maybe 2. Maybe you sign him to a 2-year deal. That's, you can end it after 1.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money, not a big cap hit. Teach Bryce how to be a quarterback, and if you get us to the playoffs like you did Cleveland, it's a bonus.
Yeah,
but that's all he's going to get.
I think at this point, I don't think anybody's signing Joe to be a starter.
No.
It's possible, like you say, if it's a team, I would think more of a team that's going to draft a rookie this year.
It could be,
Hey, Joe, we may start you the first couple of weeks till we feel like he's ready.
Sure.
But I don't think anybody's committing to Joe Flacco as their starter for the whole season. Kirk Cousins and Baker are the only guys that are, going to be starters next year. I guess Gardner Minshew I'd put him third. I think he was third. No? Yeah. I'd put Gardner Minshew ahead of.
I was surprised how low he was. I was
Yeah.
also surprised that Jameis Winston was 7.
Hold on.
Like, when was our
How
last
old is
Jameis
Jameis?
Winston sighting? He's
Jameis
probably
Winston-
31 or 2, but when was our last Jameis Winston sighting?
He played a little
30.
In 22.
He played because
He was okay.
Between him and Taysom Hill, they split some time.
Yeah.
I thought he threw a lot of interceptions.
Oh, he always throws
Not
picks.
he. Every year before that he did, but in 22, I don't think. What were his numbers in 22, Mike? If you could
Jameis
bring that up, I
Winston
thought
in
Jameis cut down the
2022.
interceptions that
Wouldn't
year.
it be something if he had a career rebirth?
Listen, he's young enough; it's possible.
Well, I mean,
In 22, he played 3 games.
Oh,
In 2021, he threw 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
okay. So
Okay,
it's
now
21,
that's-
not 22.
But that's 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
G, what do you think about Joe Flacco being ranked at number 9?
if you put that list back up here, I think he needs to be, to me, on talent. If I had to pick, I would have him at either 3 or 4. I like him better than Tannehill, Huntley. Gardner Minshew, I think, would be a tie for me. I like Jameis Winston, but Jameis Winston has a narrative that he gets people fired and he does what he wants, like the whole,
Look who's 10 on that list, by the way. There was a lot of talk about that guy. He's 10 on the list.
And Josh Dobbs is 10, but Flacco's way better than
What
Dobbs.
does it say that? Can we see that list again one more time? I'm sorry, Ant. What does it say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those guys have played with the Browns?
Yeah.
Right. This says we've been looking
true.
at. We've been
Well,
looking
and
for
It says the Browns do a great job developing quarterbacks. It's half the best 10 free agents
I don't know
in
that we
backup
developed it.
position.
quarterbacks.
I think here's what I'll say to it. It shows how little the Browns have valued that position. I talked to an NFL executive last week. What was the Super Bowl? Was it Super Bowl?
Last Sunday. This past Sunday.
Okay, no, it was
Yeah.
this week. And my question to him was, what major changes are we going to see in terms of trends in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I'd been touching on since going back to the middle of last season when I said, guys, we're going to see the value of backup quarterbacks go up. Because
should.
we've never seen more backup quarterbacks than this year. And what he said was, and I took it back to Cleveland, what he said was, well, I can tell you a position that will certainly be and will have added value is the backup quarterback spot. And I said, how did we get to the spot where we devalued them to the point that we did? And he laughed and he said, I've had that conversation with executives from other teams. We're all collectively guilty of it. What we did was because you have to value the quarterback, the starting quarterback so much, that we inappropriately and wrongly devalued the backup quarterback. And Jason touched on this when we had a discussion on it earlier in the year, when Jason said you can only allocate so many dollars to each position group. And because the starting quarterback eats up so much of the cash, it leaves very little for a backup. He was right, but what this executive told me, and he said he's talked to others that agree, we got it wrong. We needed exactly what I had been saying, an insurance policy that if our big gun gets hurt, we don't have to rely on a middling to come in and save our season.
But the reality, though, is, and maybe it is going to change, maybe you're right, and maybe he's right.
We'll find out with the
right.
dollars.
But very few backup quarterbacks. The teams that made the playoffs predominantly had quarterbacks that played every game.
Did
Outside
Patrick
of the-
ever miss a play this year?
No.
I don't think he was ever.
I think the Browns and one other team that lost early were the only teams that the starting quarterback missed more than 2 games.
So that means the Browns should theoretically understand how much a backup takes place. Put them people up there. See, because Operation Stockpile has a lot to do with these people. The Cleveland Browns, one of these 10 should be the backup quarterback this year. Pick one.
Well, again, the top 2 are going to be starters.
Okay, so
Now, wait.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because I was going to ask this question, but you kind of just answered it. That means that DTR is not the answer.
no.
Okay, wow. Okay, I don't know that I've quite got to that point yet.
Well, here's what all I know is at the track and the point where we are as an organization, if this was 2 years ago and we just learned about Watson in his 11 games, sure DTR could be the backup. But we're not at that point. We got Watson after the 11 games, after the shoulder injury, and after we saw what Flacco did to help us get to the playoffs.
So based on his performance last year,
yeah.
Well,
we can't mess around and
we
find
can't-
out
we can't-
again.
we can't
but
mess around.
ultimately, I think what we also learned is that if a top quarterback goes down, you can only go so far with a backup quarterback, no matter who he is.
Yeah.
But
You can go to the playoffs.
everything's on the line with the Browns this year. Everything. If it falls apart for Watson, then the following year, Myles Garrett's gone, Chubb's gone, Cooper's gone, you're starting over.
So that is
So
so
you got to be all in on this.
This
year.
is the reason you
That's
have
the
to
sad
stockpile.
reality,
You got to have a stockpile. You got to have a veteran quarterback like a Jameis Winston that can come in and can still give you the throws you need. You need another veteran running back that I don't got to coach up and say hit the hole for 3-4 yards because Chubb is hurt. And I need another receiver besides Amari Cooper who's getting old. They don't have time to be sitting around talking about philosophy and whether or not we can allocate. They have to.
Yeah.
It's just
well,
what
look
it
at
is.
the list, and which guy you'd want based on what you're looking for, a starter or a backup.
Yeah.
But bring up the list one more time. So forget Cousins because Baker's going to go back to the Bucs probably. Cousins, even if he doesn't go back to Minnesota, is starting somewhere. The other 8 guys are most likely backups on this list.
I'll take
So I'll
Brissett.
ask you, who would be your first choice of the other 8 guys?
I'll
Joe
take
Flacco.
I'll take Flacco, Brissett. I'll also take Gardner Minshew. I'm not really into Ryan Tannehill.
Minshew's interesting because he is of the Watson mold.
He kind of does have it's going to sound crazy, but similar skill set based on the archetype of the quarterback.
You're
He's
right.
more mobile than he gets credit for.
He
killed the Browns with
roasted our
RPO.
defense.
Yeah.
And was one game away from going to the playoffs. Last game of the year, lost to the Texans. They was in the playoff hunt. Joe Flacco was in the playoff hunt. Jameis Winston is a former number 1 overall pick. He can throw the football. And Jacoby Brissett, I wouldn't let Jacoby walk after the first year.
I would take.
I'm with you.
This
I'm
may
with
be
you
a
on
little
that.
surprising, but I would take Tyler Huntley of all those because.
Oh, wow.
I think he's the only guy of the entire group who has, and I'm not saying it's likely, but I think there's a chance he has starter upside. But I know that the floor of him is competent backup quarterback because we've seen it with Baltimore.
Yeah.
You know, like
In a similar style offense to what Deshaun will
that's
run.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And he's a mobile quarterback, so
I'm good with Huntley or Flacco. I know Flacco's
I'd be good with Huntley. I'd be good with
different system.
Flacco. I'd be good with Brissett. I'd be good with Jameis. I'd be good with Minshew.
Yeah,
like
I think Minshew is going to be a guy that a team targets as a starter, and that's going to put him out of our price range.
I mean,
I think he's going to be in demand. He played very well this year.
he did. He could be a starter. I think he's more likely to be a starter again on a team that drafts a kid, and maybe we'll start Minshew for 6 weeks. 8 weeks.
As we look down the list, who really needs a starting quarterback? The Bears will make a decision. Maybe
What's
the
Washington gonna
Falcons, Washington will need to make a decision.
Well, Washington's got the second pick in the draft, right? I think.
I believe so.
I think they do.
So Washington's got the second pick of the draft, Mike, right?
They do, and we have